Ava Gardner was born in 1922 in North Carolina, the daughter of a tobacco farmer. She came from poverty, but her natural beauty made her the most talked about girl in town. In 1941, she moved to New York. One day, while passing a photographer's window, a talent scout from MGM noticed her. He took her photograph and sent it to the studio. Louis B. Mayer, the boss of MGM, held his breath when he saw the photo. "This girl will shine on screen, even if she doesn't say a word," he said. When Ava arrived in Hollywood, she was only 18 years old. She was beautiful, but she couldn't act. Her speaking style was country, her voice too deep. The studio trained her, fixed her speech, changed her walk, and slowly Ava Gardner became Hollywood's most dangerous weapon. Her first marriage was to Mickey Rooney in 1942. Rooney was one of MGM's biggest stars at the time. Ava fell in love with him, but the marriage was a disaster. Rooney was young, successful, and out of control. He gambled, drank, spent time with other women. Ava was just a trophy to him. They divorced a year later. Ava learned the truth for the first time. In Hollywood, love was never innocent. Her second marriage came in 1945, this time to Artie Shaw, a famous clarinet player. Shaw was intelligent and talented, but he was also controlling and condescending. He constantly told Ava, "You're just beautiful, but you have no ideas." The marriage lasted a year, and Ava was alone again for the second time. But those years changed Ava. She was no longer a naive girl. She trusted no one anymore, and she thought her heart would never break again. Until she met Frank Sinatra in 1949. Frank Sinatra was married at the time. He had 3 children with Nancy Sinatra, but his career had collapsed. His films weren't successful. Studios no longer wanted him. Frank was struggling with alcohol and depression. Ava, on the other hand, was rising. Her performance in The Killers had made her an overnight star. Beautiful, mysterious, and unreachable. They first met at a party. Frank froze when he saw Ava. Ava felt something when she looked at Frank. Something dangerous. They talked. Frank told Ava about his dreams. Ava saw the fragility in Frank's eyes. And that night, they both knew. This wasn't just flirtation. This was going to be a disaster. Their relationship was secret. Frank was still married. The press was looking for them everywhere. Ava and Frank met at secret rendezvous, in hotels at midnight, at friends' houses, even in cars. But their love was too intense. Frank was ready to risk everything for Ava. He wanted to divorce Nancy, but Nancy resisted. They had children. Frank's career was already over. Divorce would make everything worse.
In 1950, the press learned everything. Newspapers ran headlines. Sinatra leaving marriage for Gardner. Nancy made a tearful statement. Frank remained silent. Ava stared defiantly at the world. The studio pressured Ava. "Stay away from Frank," they said. "Your career is ending." But Ava didn't care. For the first time in her life, she truly wanted something. And that was Frank. In 1951, Frank and Nancy divorced. 6 months later, Frank and Ava married. The ceremony was small and private. The press waited outside, but Ava and Frank were happy. The first months were like heaven. They traveled together, worked together, laughed together. Ava supported Frank. Frank was in love with Ava. But then, hell began. Frank's career was still collapsed. No studio wanted him. Ava kept rising. The film Mogambo brought her an Oscar nomination.
Frank felt overshadowed by Ava. His masculine pride was wounded. The press wrote, "Ava Gardner's husband." Frank couldn't bear it. The fights began. Over small things. Who would work where? Who would talk to whom? Who would gain more fame? But the real problem was something else. Both were too powerful, and both wanted the other to submit. In 1953, everything exploded. Ava was filming Mogambo, in Africa. Frank was alone in Los Angeles. Studios had closed their doors to him. His phone wasn't ringing. He just sat at home drinking. One night he called Ava. Ava was busy on set. Frank shouted, "I want to talk to you." Ava replied, "Frank, I'm working. We'll talk later." Frank hung up. He had a bottle of whiskey in his hand. He took his pistol and fired at the window. Neighbors called the police. When police arrived, Frank had calmed down. "It was an accident," he said. Police didn't even write a report.
But when Ava heard about this, she was scared. Frank loved her, but that love had become dangerous. Fights happened every day. Frank suspected Ava of talking to other men on sets. Ava hated Frank's controlling nature. One day Frank accused Ava. "You're going to leave me. Everyone leaves me." Ava shouted, "I love you, damn it, but you're destroying yourself." Frank replied, "You're destroying me." In that moment, Ava understood the truth. Their love was like two fires. They weren't warming each other. They were burning each other. In 1953, Ava was pregnant. Frank was very happy. A child might fix everything, but Ava was scared. Their marriage had collapsed. A child would make everything more complicated. And then, Ava had an abortion. When Frank learned, his world collapsed. He shouted at Ava, "That was our child." Ava replied through tears, "It wasn't your child. It was our child. And we couldn't be good parents." Frank left the house that night. He didn't return for days. In 1954, From Here to Eternity was released. Frank had taken a small supporting role in the film, but his performance shocked everyone. He won the Oscar. Overnight, Frank Sinatra was back. He was no longer Ava's husband. He was now Oscar-winning Frank Sinatra. But for Ava, it was too late. Their relationship was already over. Frank was busy with his success. Ava was alone. In 1957, they officially divorced. Neither spoke in court. Lawyers handled everything. But when Ava and Frank looked at each other, tears were flowing. Frank later said, "Ava was the love of my life, but we were destroying each other." Ava said in an interview, "I loved Frank. I still love him. But sometimes love isn't enough." Years passed. Frank married again. Ava remained alone. She continued making films in Hollywood, but her old brilliance was gone. She was aging. Studios wanted young faces now. In the 1980s, Ava moved to London. She lived in a small apartment. She had financial troubles. Health problems increased, but she preferred to live alone. Frank called her from time to time. "How are you?" he would ask. Ava would reply, "I'm fine, Frank. How are you?" Their conversations were always short, because every word reminded them of the past. In 1990, Ava died. She was 67 years old, alone in her London home from pneumonia. Frank didn't attend her funeral. He couldn't, because he still loved her, and he knew he couldn't bear it. But that night, at home alone with a bottle of Jack Daniels, he sang "One for My Baby" through tears. Years later, friends who knew them both spoke about what really happened. The abortion that destroyed their marriage wasn't just about fear or timing. It was about two people who loved each other desperately but could never find peace together. Ava once told a close friend that Frank was the only man who ever truly understood her, and that's what made losing him unbearable. They spoke the same emotional language, felt things with the same intensity, but that intensity consumed them. Frank never stopped carrying Ava with him. In his later years, when he sang certain songs, people who knew him well could see it. The crack in his voice when he sang about lost love wasn't acting, it was memory. Hollywood had seen passionate romances before, but Ava and Frank were different. They weren't playing roles, they were two wounded people who found each other and discovered that their wounds matched perfectly. And that matching made everything worse. The gunshot that night in 1953 wasn't just about jealousy or alcohol. It was the sound of a man realizing he was losing the only thing that made him feel alive, and the terror of that loss made him dangerous. Ava understood. She had felt that same terror. That's why she stayed as long as she did. That's why she left when she finally did. Because love that intense doesn't sustain life, it consumes it. Ava Gardner and Frank Sinatra lived Hollywood's most passionate love, but that love didn't save them. It destroyed them. Some loves are too intense, too dangerous, and in the end, everyone is left with burn marks. Frank never truly married again after Ava, because he couldn't forget her. Ava died alone, because after Frank, she could never love anyone else. Sometimes love isn't a fairy tale. Sometimes love is a wildfire, and wildfires only leave ashes.